Well, I want to talk a little bit in this video about winter travel and camping. I left Quartzsite last week on Tuesday to return to Wyoming early. Bottom line is my daughter had to have surgery on her ankle today. She's going to be laid up for a couple weeks, and I just wanted to be around to help out with the girls as necessary. So if you've been hanging around this channel for any length of time, you've heard me say, I'm sure, that to me, the best thing and the worst thing about being a nomad are actually two sides of the same coin, and that is being away from friends and family, but also being able to get to friends and family when things come up, like a child needing surgery or, another loved one being sick, whatever like that. You're able to drop everything and get there. So in any case, this development meant some winter travel and winter camping for me this season again. I usually end up back in Wyoming early enough, not every year, but a lot of years I'm back here early enough that I'm getting snowed on and having some real cold anyway. And last year in October, I got like a foot and a half of snow dumped on me in 20-degree temperatures before I got on the road heading south. So it's not like it's uncommon for me to run into it, but actually try. And I have done some winter trips, Christmas trips back and forth, which were interesting. Sometimes the weather, and last year I went out to New York in December and came back in January. So it's not like it's uncommon for me, but this is going to be a much larger block than I have mostly done in a long time, for sure. And stay tuned. I'm going to talk about a few things, but I am going to give you some real life examples in a little bit later in this video about how things worked for me, how my heat worked, that sort of stuff that I think will be very helpful to anybody that's thinking about doing winter camping or thinking of getting on the road and knows they may be doing some winter travel and camping. I think it'll be really helpful for you. So stay tuned for that part. And did you know I'm on Patreon? This channel is not really a vlog. I do share some personal things, but it's not a vlog. But I share a lot of behind the scenes stories and photos and more on Patreon. So you can join me over there for as little as $1 a month. Links in the video description if you want to check that out and learn more about it. Okay, so first bullet point I want to hit here is about traffic. Traffic is not directly related to winter travel, but it kind of does overlap or come up because the days tend to be very short. So I've done a lot of night driving over the years, but these days I kind of tend to like to travel during the day, stop at night, and I try to travel on weekdays rather than weekends, just in case something comes up, because occasionally it does. So I was trying to stop by sundown each night on this trip, which spanned parts of 3 days. And when I'm traveling, I always try to avoid big cities as much as possible. And when I cannot avoid them, I really try to avoid hitting them during peak traffic times. Well, between the short winter days and just the way this trip worked out, I managed to hit Las Vegas and Salt Lake City both at rush hour in the evening. So that kind of added to the excitement a little bit, especially all on the travel trails, those big cities in rush hour. My second bullet point is to plan around the weather. Now, like if I'm in the desert and I'm coming back to Wyoming, especially during winter time frame or time frame when I could have winter weather. Sometimes I'll go through Las Vegas and up into Utah to Salt Lake and over into Wyoming. Other times I'll go through Albuquerque and Denver and up into Wyoming at Cheyenne. It just depends which way the weather is going to be better, because those are the two main routes, and sometimes the weather's markedly better on one than the other. So I always check my options to see where I have the best chance of getting through without any real trouble. This time, coming back to Wyoming, I left Quartzsite on Tuesday to avoid 60-plus mile-an-hour winds in Quartzsite. They were in the forecast for Wednesday. Last I had checked, it looked pretty good after I got up into Utah and Wyoming. Well, I still ran into 50-mile-an-hour winds in Utah, but I didn't check the forecast for a couple days before I left, so it's always possible that it had changed after I last checked. But in any case, it was better than the 60-plus in Quartzsite, but it was still pretty challenging. In some ways, the good news is that it's a headwind, so it wasn't pushing me all over the road, except for sometimes when tractor trailers passed. But I had one tank of gas, for example. I was at 6 miles per gallon, pushing that headwind and doing some climbing. And there was even one time I literally crested the hill, start down the other side, and I realized I'm losing speed and decelerating, going downhill with 10,000 pounds of trailer and rig if I'm not staying on the throttle. So that's how bad the wind was. You get up into those high winds and it can really have a negative impact on fuel efficiency and just makes it more difficult to drive. You're getting pushed around a lot. And I was specifically trying to avoid that kind of high wind with a travel trailer. So I did, though, avoid major weather problems for the most part on this trip. Ran into some snow squalls in Utah Wednesday during the day when visibility got a little low, but it wasn't anything too concerning. Third bullet point, expect winter weather. There's always a chance of winter weather in most of the country, at least, despite whatever the forecast may say. So you can try and plan around it. Try and plan when it looks like it's going to be good. Try and plan the route that looks like it's going to be the best. But if it's winter, there's always a chance of running into some winter weather. So like I said, it's Wednesday during the day. I had some snow squalls in Utah that were limited visibility and blowing around a lot, but it wasn't really accumulating enough to be a concern. I did have a brief period of some really heavy snow on Wednesday evening just before sundown in Utah on the mountains between Salt Lake City and the western Wyoming border. When it was coming down pretty good, there was at least an inch on the ground and accumulating, and it was a slushy, icy mess. So that was a little concerning, driving a cargo van, rear-wheel drive cargo van, up a mountain, hauling an extra few thousand pounds behind me. And of course, then as I crested the hill, I'm like, okay, good. Now I got to go down and try not to slide or lose control going down with a trailer pushing me. So I made it through just fine. Partly, I have brand new tires on the van and the trailer. The ones on the van are all ATs, so they have better traction than standard street tires, and not quite snow tires, but definitely better than your all-season radials. I also have been driving in winter weather since I was a teenager, so I'm a lot of experience doing that, but having the trailer on did add some stress for certain. Okay, another bullet point, be prepared for cold. Now, this may seem obvious. Well, of course it'll be cold if you're camping in the winter, traveling in the winter, but I also think it's easy to underestimate serious cold. And we're not talking here about, when it gets down to 28 or 30 degrees in Quartzsite in the winter. I'm talking about real cold that you can encounter in the North Country during the winter months. So some examples of things that may not be immediately obvious. If you get a real cold snap, and again, like I said, I'm not talking about just below freezing. I'm talking about, serious cold. Your food and water freeze solid. Now, if your water jug freezes up a little bit, you hit it, break it loose, it's all good. When your water jug freezes solid, you have no water, and there's a good chance you're going to burst the containers, and so that's kind of a problem. Your food will freeze up. Canned goods freeze solid, they can bust open. Anything in your refrigerator is likely to completely freeze. And stuff that's in the cabinets is going to make completely freeze. And so you can end up losing food, just like you do in an extreme heat thing, because it gets ruined by freezing. Another concern, if you're like me and have electronics, you can't be letting the lithium batteries in laptops and drones and cameras and stuff get down to zero or whatever overnight. So I have to make sure that I'm protecting those to avoid damaging electronics. Now, if you're one of the nomads, like many and snowbirds who are chasing 70, as they say, there are options to deal with cool weather when it's a little bit cold at night or a little bit cool in the evening or morning. There's plenty of options to do that. But if you're going to be doing serious winter camping, you absolutely need heat. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. Some people use an RV furnace. That does use a lot of propane and especially uses a lot of electricity. So you really have to be prepared for that and have an adequate battery bank and a way to recharge that battery bank if you're going to be using an RV furnace. Electric heat's an option if you're plugged into shore power. Technically, I suppose it's possible to run a small electric heater off of battery power and solar, but you're going to have an awfully big battery bank and an awfully big solar array, especially during the winter months when the days are short and often cloudy, to recharge that. So for most people, that's not going to be a practical option. Portable propane heaters are probably the most common option. That's going to include things like the Mr. Heater line of Buddy heater, a little Buddy, a portable Buddy, a big Buddy, or the Olympian line, Wave line of heaters, Wave 3, Wave 6, Wave 8. Diesel heaters and options, those are becoming increasingly common these days. There are fairly expensive models that are good and reliable. There are also a lot of cheap diesel heaters that people are buying these days. They vary in terms of how reliable they are. Some people, they don't work out of the box. Other people, they work fine for a year or more before you have to do some maintenance. If I were to, and I may, by the way, do a diesel heater myself soon. If I were to do that, I would definitely be carrying some spare parts, like a spare fuel pump and fuel filter and glow plug and fuel line. And it's also have to keep in mind there, if you're doing serious winter camping, a lot of people like to mount the tank and or the pump and line outside of the rig and bring it in to keep it quieter and limit any odor from the diesel. But if you're in real cold, your line's going to freeze up or gel up, and you won't have heat. So you have to consider that where you're going to mount it, but you also want some supplies to make sure you can fix it if you have a problem, because the last thing you want to run into is to be in some really brutal cold and not have your heat working. And finally, some people do put wood stoves in their rigs. You need enough clearance. You need clearances with the portable propane heaters too, but you're really going to make sure you have clearances with a wood stove, and you have to maintain it, make sure your pipe's in good condition and everything. And of course, you have to have wood, and you have to carry wood then. So that's not a super common option, but it is an option. And if I were going to be doing all winter camping somewhere up north throughout the winter, I would probably think about doing a wood stove. Okay, so a little bit about my trip I just did. I left from Quartzsite on Tuesday around noontime, stopped in Mesquite, Nevada Tuesday night. It was 31 degrees overnight, so I just had to run the heat for a few minutes in the evening just to kind of take the chill off while I was hanging out before I went to bed. Wednesday, I drove up, made it into half an hour from Wyoming. So I was up in the Utah mountains Wednesday night, and it was when I stopped for the night, right at sunset, got into the trailer, it was 29 degrees inside. I then went down to a low of 2 degrees overnight outside. But my heater kept it, even running on low, kept it 45 degrees inside the trailer overnight. So that was, pretty comfortable. I throw some blankets, and I'm totally comfortable sleeping at those temperatures. Thursday evening, I made it into Wyoming about 4:30 in the afternoon. Stopped and saw a couple granddaughters, went to see my son and the other granddaughters, and I made a mistake of going inside, hanging out, visiting with everybody. I forgot to turn the heat on after I'd gotten parked, and so when I came out to the trailer around 8 p.m., it was 19 degrees inside. So that took hours to warm the trailer back up again. So presently, it's pretty mild during the day here in Wyoming, which is fortunate. Give me a chance to acclimate a little bit. Drop it into the 30s and 20s, low 30s and 20s at night. So it does get cold at night, but it's not like brutal, not like the first night I was here or that night in Utah. But it will get cold again here. We will have more cold snaps before spring comes, and we will definitely have snow again. Had a little bit of snow Saturday night into Sunday morning. It was just a dusting, really wasn't anything to be concerned with, and it melted off rather quickly once the sun came up. But so we have a mild thing now, but it's coming back. The cold's coming back. So it's essential to be prepared for whatever winter weather throws at you if you're going to be traveling and camping during the winter months in places where, winter weather's a thing, south of I-10 or something. Even then, sometimes you're going to run into places that are cold, but that's a good rule of thumb I use, south of I-10. So I'm currently using one of two heaters, depending on the situation. I have an electric heater. It plugs in AC-powered electric heater that I use when I'm on grid on shore power. That does have a fan in it, so it moves the air around. It works pretty well. I also have a Mr. Heater Portable Buddy that I use for off-grid. When I'm camping off-grid, I don't have power. I also use it as a boost when needed. So when it's 19 degrees in the trailer at 8 p.m., for example, I turn on my electric heat. It's going to be like forever trying to get it warmed up. The Mr. Heater is more powerful, so I can turn that on in conjunction with the electric, and it took a few hours to get everything warmed up. Unfortunately, that needs repair now. It's been acting up with a pilot light not want to stay lit. Now the pilot light will not stay lit at all, so I'll be working on that this week, disassembling it, see if I can get it cleaned up and repaired so that it's back in good order. I have found, too, that it's more efficient and works better if you maintain a comfortable temperature in your rig rather than trying to warm it back up again when it gets really cold. So when it's 15 degrees outside, it's a lot easier, like it was Thursday night here in Wyoming. It's a lot easier to maintain a comfortable temperature inside than it is to let it get down to 19 inside the trailer and bring it back up again, because that takes a long time. Basically, like a lot of times, I'll be able to turn the heat off during the day, even in winter. Sunshine, and I open up the windows that are getting sunlight. It's a solar effect going, and it's comfortable enough during the day. So, but the key then is to make sure that as soon as it starts cooling down, I turn the heat back on rather than waiting until it gets really cold. And it's important to make sure that your heater, whatever it is adequate to your rig and the low temperatures you expect to encounter. The portable buddy keeps this well-insulated travel trailer 40 degrees plus above outside temperatures, running on low. That's the 4,000 BTU setting. So I know with this rig, if it's 20 degrees outside, I got the Mr. Heater on low, I can keep it up to 60 in here, maybe 65, 62, something like that. Last winter, I was in upstate New York for about 3 weeks, helping to care for my grandfather as he was on hospice, then going to the funeral and everything. And I brought a 3,000 BTU Olympian Wave 3 with me. That made and that was in the van, so it's a lot less floor space, less than half the floor space, but not as well insulated as the trailer. And it made about a 20 to 30 degree Fahrenheit difference, but that meant it was very cold because I had a lot of 0 degree and 10 degree weather when I was there, so it was still really, really cold in the van, even with the heater running 24/7. So some quick suggestions on winter camping in really cold weather, like what I've been doing lately, what I did last winter. So if you're thinking about a Mr. Heater unit, portable propane heater, I'd recommend the portable buddy over the other options. That's going to run between 4,000 and 9,000 BTUs, whether you're on low or on high. That seems pretty good for it. And if you're in mild weather, that's going to be overkill. But if you're in cold weather, that's the kind of power you need. If you're looking at the Olympian heaters, I'd go with a Wave 6 or Wave 8. The Wave 6 is going to give you from 3,200 to 6,000 BTUs, and the Wave 8 will give you from 4,200 to 8,000 BTUs. So if you want to match the output of the Mr. Heater Portable Buddy, the middle-sized one that's the most common, you're looking at a Wave 8. I do not recommend the Mr. Heater Little Buddy if you're doing serious winter camping, really cold weather. That's at 3,800 BTU, which is a little bit less than low setting on the Portable Buddy, and it's just, you don't get the option of turning it up higher. And there are some other issues with those. It's not impossible, but you have to do some hacks to be able to use them with a refillable tank and stuff. I just don't recommend those for serious cold weather camping. I can tell you by experience, even in a decently insulated van, they are not going to keep you warm when it gets down to 0 or even 10 degrees. I also would not recommend the Olympian Wave 3 for serious winter camping. Again, if you're chasing 70 and you're just looking at some occasional cool nights, either one of those may be adequate for you, but I just wouldn't recommend them for real cold because they're not powerful enough. So don't forget there are other options besides supplemental heat sources like these things I've talked about. Covering your windows with reflectix and or heavy curtains will help a whole lot. You're going to lose a lot of heat. If your rig is insulated, that's where your heat's going to be going out through. It's through the windows and any other places that are drafty. So if you can cover those up, that's going to help a lot. Obviously, warm clothing and warm bedding will allow you to not have to heat the vehicle as much, and also allow you to stay warm while you're sleeping overnight. But you're still going to need some kind of heat in extreme cold, or it's going to be pretty miserable. So these are my experiences recently with winter camping and winter travel. I have winter camped, off and on for years, without heat and with heat, but it's definitely more pleasant if you have some kind of heat, so you can bring it up, even if you're not bringing it up to 70 degrees or even 60 degrees inside. If you can at least get it a good bit above outside, that helps a lot. So what are your experiences with winter travel, winter camping? Let me know in the comments what your experiences are. Thanks for joining me in this video, everybody. Hope you found some value in here from my recent experiences. We'll catch you in the next video.